Okay, let's unpack this. Our bodies are in this constant sort of invisible struggle.
Right, a war,
Yeah,
really.
a war. We're talking about chronic systemic inflammation, that subtle, silent force behind everything from nagging joint pain to, accelerated aging and cognitive fatigue. It is a massive, overwhelming topic.
It is, and the triggers are so ubiquitous in modern life that many people just accept it. They think, oh, this is just part of getting older.
Mhm.
But the source material we dug into today, it provides an incredibly clear and actionable roadmap.
Mm.
Our deep dive is built around the core philosophy laid out in the book, The Anti-Inflammatory Diet by Kevin Bridges.
And Bridges' work is all about achieving what he calls biological alignment. He argues that the solution lies in shifting to, and this is a quote, "the foods you were designed to eat."
Right, the promise is huge.
Yeah.
Manage discomfort, reclaim energy, and really support healthy aging from the cellular level up.
So, our mission for you, the learner, is pretty simple. We've extracted 7 crucial pillars of knowledge from these sources that completely change the way you think about fuel and preparation.
Think of this as your accelerated path to mastering anti-inflammatory fundamentals. It's about giving your biology a much-needed break.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately then. Takeaway 1. Understanding the dual nature of inflammation itself. We hear that word inflammation and we panic, but our sources stress that acute inflammation is actually our hero. How do we distinguish between the good fire and the bad systemic one?
It's all about purpose and completion. Acute inflammation is your body's emergency response team. When you get a cut or a sprain, it rushes to the scene, isolates the damage, and starts the repair. We see this classic healing cycle. First irritation, then the clearing out of debris, and finally this crucial stage we call granulation. That's where new tissue is built and the wound closes peacefully.
That whole process is good. It's necessary.
Absolutely necessary.
So when does the hero become the villain?
The issue with chronic inflammation is precisely that the cycle stalls. It never reaches that final peaceful granulation stage where the body says, mission accomplished.
It just gets stuck.
Exactly. Instead, the body remains stuck in irritation mode, constantly deploying resources as if the threat is still active.
And what's fascinating here, and I think this surprises a lot of people, is that the threat doesn't have to be physical. It can be entirely chemical or psychological.
That's right. Persistent psychological stress is one of the biggest non-injury triggers we uncovered in the sources. When you are under chronic stress, your body releases cortisol.
And that hormone signals the system to do what?
It pressures your system to increase insulin levels. And what that creates is a specific chemical environment where inflammation can just take hold and thrive, even if there's no wound or bacteria to fight. The fire is lit by stress, and it's fueled by chemistry.
That perfect pivot from cortisol to insulin takes us straight into takeaway 2, which deals directly with blood sugar. If stress lights the chemical fire, what fuels it most effectively?
Rapid glucose spikes. This is where the sources really challenge the idea that all health foods are equal. If you are relying on refined carbohydrates, think white flour, processed breads, foods with hidden corn derivatives like corn syrup, you are setting yourself up for massive blood sugar surges.
Which means the practical solution is to slow the whole process down.
Exactly. The goal is maintaining what we can call a biological steady state. And you do that by prioritizing slow digesting, whole grains oats, quinoa, buckwheat. They deliver a slow, steady stream of energy, so your insulin doesn't have to spike dramatically to handle the load.
Okay, so if you look at the mechanism, when we dump refined carbs in, the insulin response is bad because it triggers pro-inflammatory signaling molecules. But here's where it gets really interesting. The creation of what the sources call AGs.
Ah, yes. Advanced glycation end products. You should think of AGEs as sugar rust.
Sugar rust, I like that.
High sugar consumption chemically reacts with your essential body proteins, essentially coating and damaging them. When these proteins get rusted, they send distress signals to the immune system.
What are those distress signals called?
They're called cytokines. And these messengers, they're what further increase the internal swelling. This mechanism is crucial because it's the scientific link between high sugar intake and those vague internal aches, joint discomfort, and soreness that people can't pin on an injury.
The sugar rust is literally irritating your tissues.
Directly.
That is a tremendously powerful image. Let's pivot now to fats for takeaway 3, because that is the other huge imbalance in the modern diet. The critical competitive relationship between omega-3 and omega-6 fats.
The competitive relationship is key. Our sources show that current diets are just so heavily skewed toward omega-6s. They're pervasive in common vegetable oils, like corn, soy, peanut, and sunflower oil.
And the ratio is way off.
Shockingly high. sometimes 15.1 or even more when the goal should be closer to 1.1.
So practically, how do we adjust this? I assume it's swapping those seed oils for olive or coconut oil for cooking, and then loading up on the omega-3 champions, walnuts, chia seeds, and fatty fish like salmon or sardines.
That's the practical roadmap. But the chemistry explains why this swap is so powerful. Omega-6 fats contain linoleic acid, which the body quickly converts into arachidonic acid, or AA.
And AA is bad news.
Think of AA as the primary building block for pro-inflammatory messengers. It's actively building the ammunition for the inflammatory response.
And what are omega-3s doing? Are they trying to neutralize that ammunition?
They're trying to inspire the production of anti-inflammatory prostaglandins, the soothing crew, the repair crew. But here's the problem with over-consuming omega-6. That abundance activates a specific molecule called the COX-2 enzyme.
COX-2 enzyme. What does that do in this context?
The COX-2 enzyme effectively jams the signal. It blocks the beneficial, soothing actions of the omega-3s you are consuming.
So even if you eat salmon, if your diet is flooded with omega-6,
The COX-2 pathway is active, leaving your tissues hypersensitive and unable to benefit from the omega-3s. The war is happening at the cellular level, and if the ratio is off, omega-6 always wins.
that is a perfect explanation of the cellular competition. So we've looked at the big systemic triggers like sugar and poor fats, but sometimes the irritants are hiding in plain sight, which brings us to takeaway 4, the silent dietary invaders.
These are foods that, for sensitive individuals, the body perceives as foreign invaders, triggering a low-level internal immune alert. The sources focus heavily on gluten, so wheat, rye, and barley, and conventional dairy.
Wait, so the sources are saying that even seemingly healthy foods like nuts or citrus could be inflammatory for certain people? That seems kind of counterintuitive.
This is where we have to distinguish between general health and your personalized biological response. For some people, these foods might increase histamine levels, which then triggers inflammation that specifically targets joints. The key is identifying your personal reaction.
But gluten and dairy are the most common culprits.
They are, because they interact with the digestive lining in a critical way.
And this is where we get into the concept of leaky gut syndrome, isn't it?
Precisely. If you have a sensitivity, a substance like gluten activates an inflammatory response right in the digestive tract. This can compromise the tight junctions in the intestinal lining, making it leaky.
So things get through that shouldn't.
Undigested food particles, toxins, they pass into the bloodstream. The immune system sees these particles, treats them like invaders, and stays permanently on high alert. It creates this background hum of systemic inflammation.
And what specific role does conventional dairy play in that picture, beyond just a general sensitivity?
Well, conventional dairy often comes from animals treated with hormones and antibiotics, which can make the product itself potentially acidic. When you ingest highly acidic substances consistently, it can translate directly to painful irritation, especially around sensitive areas like the joints.
Which brings us back to those vague aches we talked about earlier. Let's shift our focus completely for takeaway 5. Let's move from avoiding triggers to aggressively embracing cellular defense. We are talking about leveraging plant bioactives for sort of internal anti-aging and long-term cellular protection.
We need to proactively program ourselves for defense. The sources highlight that colorful plants contain active molecules that act as your defense shield. Think of the deep reds and blues, anthocyanins in berries, lycopene in tomatoes, and resveratrol in red grapes.
What are these compounds specifically defending against? What's the core threat to our cells from daily life?
The primary threat is something called free radicals. These are unstable molecules created constantly by daily life, pollution, stress, and ironically even vigorous exercise. They're corrosive. They want to stabilize by stealing electrons from your healthy cells, which causes damage and chaos.
So what's the consequence of that chaos?
Internally, it causes tissue wear and fatigue. Visibly, this damage reduces collagen production, which is the very backbone of healthy skin structure.
So antioxidants are the answer.
Antioxidants from these colorful plants are specialized neutralizers. They donate an electron to the free radical, stabilizing it, and essentially preventing cell damage. They're the body's dedicated repair crew, helping maintain cellular integrity and protecting the skin's barrier from the inside out.
I love that shift in perspective. We're moving from defense to proactive offense. That brings us to takeaway 6, the power of herbs and spices. The sources are absolutely right. Your spice rack should be seen as your most potent tool for managing internal swelling and aches.
Yeah, it's basically a functional medicine cabinet right there on your kitchen counter. We should stop seeing these as just flavor enhancers and start treating them as biological tools. Instead of reaching for high-salt options, which can be inflammatory themselves, we could be using ginger, turmeric, garlic, and cinnamon in abundance.
The sources even specifically mention cayenne pepper, which has capsaicinoids. We tend to think of capsaicin as just heat, but it has a long history of use for easing pain from headaches and arthritis. It seems contradictory.
It's paradoxical, but highly effective. These compounds interact directly with the pain signaling pathways. Look at curcumin in turmeric, for example. What we found is that it actively relieves inflammation, not just through one pathway, but by interacting with multiple targets involved in swelling at the same time.
And ginger, too.
Ginger has been traditionally and scientifically proven to treat both infections and headaches.
So they're literally cooling the body's internal responses down by disrupting the signals that trigger swelling and discomfort.
Exactly. They are a form of preemptive strike. They interrupt that signaling cascade right at the source, giving the immune system less reason to overreact. And for those who want to maximize the effect, the sources suggest simple kitchen hacks like always pairing turmeric with a pinch of black pepper.
Why the black pepper?
It significantly increases the absorption of the active curcumin. That turns a good defense into a great one.
That brings us to our final crucial insight, takeaway 7, kitchen mindfulness. It's not just what we put in the pot, but how we prepare it. We can buy the best ingredients, but destroy their anti-inflammatory potential in minutes.
This is often the most overlooked variable. The sources strongly advise against high heat methods because they cause excessive oxidation. We should absolutely avoid microwaving, which destroys essential nutrients, and be extremely cautious of grilling or barbecuing until the food is overly browned.
So what are the recommended gentle methods we should lean on?
Steaming, poaching, or stir-frying at moderate temperatures with minimal oil. And here's a very specific practical tip. Favor iron pots or stainless steel over nonstick pans whenever possible. You avoid chemical toxins that can leach from the nonstick surfaces, and you prevent potentially excessive iron buildup.
Let's get into the science of that browning danger. Why does high heat make a perfectly good piece of chicken or steak inflammatory?
When you grill or fry proteins and fats at high temperatures, they undergo a process called glycation. This doesn't just create AGEs, it also creates compounds like heterocyclic amines, or HAs. These are carcinogenic compounds that form when proteins and fats burn or get excessively brown.
So that appealing crust on the barbecue, that's basically oxidized irritant compounds forming.
It is. The high heat creates massive amounts of free radicals and oxidized compounds that the body immediately treats as irritants, triggering the immune system's full inflammatory cascade.
Of course.
Again, the occasional grilled meal is unlikely to derail everything. But if gentle cooking methods become your primary daily habit, you drastically reduce that constant, self-inflicted inflammatory load.
That was a tremendous deep dive into the anti-inflammatory blueprint. We've covered everything from rebalancing our fats and understanding the insulin trigger to using the medicinal power of spices and adapting gentle cooking methods.
If we can leave you with one core analogy to help synthesize all 7 of these takeaways, imagine your immune system is a dedicated security guard for your entire body. If that guard is constantly dealing with small fires, processed sugar, hidden toxins, chronic stress, oxidized food, he becomes utterly exhausted, and he starts to overreact to every minor event.
That systemic overreaction is chronic inflammation.
Exactly. By shifting your diet to this anti-inflammatory blueprint, you are systematically putting out those small fires.
Yeah.
You allow the guard to rest, so when a true emergency happens, he reacts appropriately, ensuring your body stays strong, resilient, and well-maintained. You're giving your body the space it needs to complete the healing cycle.
So what does this all mean for you? If chronic inflammation is caused by the failure of the healing cycle to complete, the failure to reach that final granulation stage, what non-dietary habit in your life, perhaps a lack of consistent restorative sleep or not enough movement, might be the bigger hidden obstacle preventing your body from truly finishing that healing cycle and achieving biological rest? Something to mull over as you step back into your day.